Hello and welcome to this lesson. We're going to be looking today at flagging data shared externally. We're continuing our series of lessons, all focused on the idea of data management and especially around the management of data in regards the data privacy legislation and implications for storing data within inside a CRM system like Sage CRM. In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the topic surrounding the way in which we understand how data has come into the system and how do we audit where that data goes. And in particular, we're going to be thinking about the personal data that an administrator needs to keep track of as they're working out where data has left Sage CRM in order to go to another system or how it's been synchronized with another system. So this is part of the set of training that we've been considering when it comes to the features that support system administrators in this management of personal data and their efforts to be able to ensure compliance with regulations like GDPR. We've been looking at the importance of informed consent and managing consent within Sage CRM. We've understood how Sage CRM provides you with features so that you can record that consent, including automated emails, to ensure that you have got a clear trail of those consents and how you can keep track of it. We've looked at the idea of when it comes to the right to be forgotten and the removal of data to certainly minimize the information that you're holding, and that's data anonymization. And we've gone on to think about the question of the removal of both communications and documents from the system. But our system doesn't exist in isolation. It is not a single silo. It is part of a web of systems that a company may be using. And we have this responsibility of managing what happens to the life cycle of personally identifiable data or personally identifiable information. And we can find ourselves recording all sorts of information that will uniquely and clearly identify a person. It's not just their name, it's their email address, it's other factors which allow you to be able to identify a natural person or a data subject that you need to see where has that data ended up. And it's important because once you've got one item of data, it starts to allow you to combine it with other bits of information. And if you are not managing that, not just personal information, but sensitive personal information can then be accessible. And part of it is understanding how do you police the vulnerability and where you've ended up putting that data. Now, Sage CRM is, as I said, is not a single silo of data. It sits in systems where you're going to be bringing data from an accounting system, from websites, and catching information that has come in through inquiry forms. You're going to have conference information uploaded. You've got a lot of ways in which personally identifiable information can end up inside Sage CRM combined to create a rich set of data, which you then use for the different purposes. And of course, Sage CRM sits at the heart of those. It's in one respect, Sage CRM isn't really a CRM system, it's an integration hub. And it is used extensively to be able to provide a front end to unite disparate back-end systems into a single point of reference for the majority of staff within an organization. You only have to think about the way in which you're not going to have everyone using the account system, but you are likely to have people using a CRM system be able to look at the accounting information plus the customer care information that might sit in an external system with the sales information to get a full picture of a person. Now, it comes within that life cycle. You have to be able to say goodbye to that data. But are you just going to get rid of it in one system? Or are you going to be able to make sure that you have a way of tracking through and identifying where all of that information needs to go? And if we think about this diagram, which is trying to represent the APIs and the way in which Sage CRM can integrate with other systems, whether you're dealing with a Sage 300 or a Sage Intacct or a Sage 200 system, there are different implications. And just thinking about the flow of data, you could start off with an ERP system in which you're recording initial information about a business plus the primary contact or contacts within that organization, which are then synced into Sage CRM, where it's combined with other information about the conversations that you're having, the notes that you're collecting, and the progress notes associated with the opportunity management. You then may want, for marketing purposes, to push that information into MailChimp, and it goes on then through MailChimp to be used not just in an email campaign, but also into social media. So you've got suddenly a sense of where is this personal information held by you, because of course all this sits in your responsibility as a business that is both a data controller and also a data processor. So as we think about this, let's actually look at what goes on when we pass information from Sage CRM through into a system like MailChimp and how we can actually get a sense of how Sage CRM allows you to manage that and manage the risk of holding and understanding your management responsibilities. So if I look now inside Sage CRM, you can see what I've done here is I've logged on. I'm logged on as a system administrator, and you can see that I've navigated into the screen that allows me to have set up an integration with MailChimp. So you can see here that I have enabled this. The message at the top of the screen says that everything's hunky-dory with MailChimp, and I can now start to think about what this means in terms of the sending of data into MailChimp. So to do that, I need to switch over into a group. I'm going to find one of my groups. I'm going to look at I'm going to concentrate on person information here, but what I'm saying for person information also applies for company, but also to lead information, because lead information can be sent across into MailChimp as well. Here, I'm looking at a group linked to the person entity. You can see this happens to be a static group. I've made an alteration to this group, so it's got the email addresses that I want to be able to send across. We'll be touching on this idea a little bit later on about the way in which very often systems are using an imperfect but very useful alternative identifier as the means of tracking through who that person is, and that happens to be the email address. But here you can see I've got a group of people, and I can now look at sending that to MailChimp. So I've just highlighted the button there, and so I'm going to send to MailChimp, just a click, and it goes, and immediately the message come back saying that that data has gone to MailChimp. Now, if I look down now in one of these contacts, and you can see the contacts here, and I'm going to think just down the third contact in my list, you can see in the middle column at the top panel within the screen, there's a field here that is called "This record has been sent to," and you can see that it's marked as being sent across to MailChimp. So this is very, very obviously within the individual records going to be able to tell any user that this person's information has already been sent across into the MailChimp system. If we take that field, we can start to think about how we can use it. So I'm going to return back to my group because this was a pop-up. And here I'm looking at my group again, and I'm going to think about how do I use that knowledge that all of these records now are clearly marked as being sent across to MailChimp to perhaps be able to report or to be able to identify those records for other uses. Now, it is held in the database, so of course I can go now into reports, I can go into general area, and here you can see that I've set up a report. And if I just go into this, this happens to be looking at information that has been synced out to MailChimp. Notice that what I've done is I've added into the report contents and into also the report criteria, the field, that idea of where it's been sent. This record has been sent to. And what we can do is if I cancel from that and then actually run the report and click to run the report, you can see that I've got the possibility of picking MailChimp as my target of where it's gone. And I get a report telling me all of the data that I need to look at within inside that external system of where that personally identifiable data has gone. And in terms of, we'll look at this idea, some of these ideas again, when we look at MailChimp integration a little bit later on in another lesson. But we'll be looking at the way in which we decide exactly what data is sent into the MailChimp audience and how we can then understand our exposure to the personally identifiable information that is now passed into that other system. Let's take that idea and think about what we've done. That information would have come possibly from a data upload. It may well have come from just standard processing, telemarketing and telesales that we do, but it's passed through into our MailChimp system. And so we have got, if you like, thinking about where we've passed it upstream. But how do we know that if we're thinking about Sage CRM, how do we know that that data doesn't actually originate in another system, for example, the accounting system? Because we're in the middle with Sage CRM, this integration hub, and we want to be able to manage from within inside Sage CRM the implications of understanding our responsibilities within GDPR and other data privacy rules. So if I think about what goes on inside an integration, and I've just happened to pick the Sage 300 integration, when you integrate Sage CRM with the external system, there's going to have to be a whole set of additional fields brought across into Sage CRM in order to manage that integration. So you're going to have questions of a common identifier between the two systems, so synchronization can take place. You can have settings that control the bidirectionality of the sync and who has priorities, etc. And you're going to have some information passed across into CRM, so you can have meaningful local processing of accounting information sent from that external system. Now, in the case of Sage CRM, you've got a set, and Sage 300, you've got a set of fields which are added both to the company and into the person entity. Now, the very presence of these fields, or rather data in these fields, will immediately mark out this record as existing in more than one system. And so you can take this idea of what's contained within the person table, but that person table will also be in the context of a company, which will also have been synced across, and you can start to see that this is information that has ultimately come from the accounting system, in this case, Sage 300. Now, if I think about how we sit into any of these systems, one of the natures of how do we identify information may be, if it's in the case of an accounting system integrated with CRM, it may be on the basis of some shared foreign key value. It's where you are extending the key into the two systems. And that may well be in a numeric or some other customer key type information that is not in itself of any meaning to a human being. But probably one of the most useful things to be able to uniquely identify a person across multiple systems is going to be their email address, because the majority of our interactions now, whether we're dealing with the integration with the email system itself, the email marketing platform, the accounting system, the online forums and communities that you may integrate with, self-service or whatever back-end system, there are a number of very useful elements to an email address. So you've got its ubiquity. Email addresses are widely used, easily accessible. They are highly convenient for a business to use. They're consistent because people once you're in an organization, people tend to maintain the same email address for an extended period. You even if a company is taken over by another company and the domain changes, very often there will still be a question of aliasing to allow for you to keep using the old address. And so email addresses are consistent. They are a very useful tool for that reason. And they are simple after all. If everyone understands what an email address is, and so matching is very, very easy between the systems. And in fact, that's the heart of the integration with MailChimp, that sense that if your person exists inside Sage CRM with that email address, that's the same person that's inside the MailChimp audience that you're using. And integration with other systems become very, very straightforward when it comes to that sort of synchronizing across. But there are questions that, although I glibly said that something like MailChimp is unique, uses the concept of a subscriber on an email address being unique. In fact, some small organizations, several people may be using a shared email address. So there is a bit of a a disadvantage with email addresses, but very often they're the best you've got, and they provide us with a useful short cut to identity matching across multiple systems. We've now looked in our conversations at many of the risks associated with the way in which we handle personally identifiable information and sensitive data. And Sage CRM gives you the ability to, as we've seen, manage consent, work with the anonymization of data to ensure minimization of data when necessary, and its elimination or data erasure, which goes through to the absolute removal of communications, which is all that unstructured data, which can be interrogated now very easily with AI type tools, and the deletion of documents, again, to ensure that you are complying with the exact removal of any data. This flagging that we've just looked at in this lesson sort of completes that set of features, because we know that Sage CRM is not on its own, and we pass data, we receive data from systems, and we pass data to other systems. And so we have to understand, and Sage CRM gives you these tools to give you a sense of where all of that data is, so you can fulfill your obligations underneath data privacy law. I've come to the end of this particular lesson. We're moving away from questions around the management of data for specifically personal data. All of what I've talked about here, I'm not a lawyer, and so this isn't legal advice that I've given you. I've given you this high level things. Each business has to be responsible for the management of personal data and ensuring that you understand your obligations in that. I've been just trying to ensure that you understand that we've given you the tools to do that job. We're moving away from GDPR and things like the Californian Consumer Act and the different legislation that exists around the world. And instead, in the next two lessons within this series, and the final two lessons within the series, we're going to be thinking about the feature that allows you to relate entities to each other to create novel ways of understanding the ties between data items. That's the idea of related entities and building relationships with those. But let's see who has got, or if there are any questions. I look forward to seeing you on the next lessons. Thank you so much for attending. See you. Bye-bye.